Another a word that has become a bit of a part of the hyposphere, I guess, is cloud. Cloud used to mean the internet, and starting maybe 2-3 years ago, it started to mean something else.
Yeah.
Let's zero it a bit on what does that mean, and what does that mean for you specifically?
Sure. We are really, how shall I say, excited about cloud, but a bit concerned that the term has been co-opted, or I think I was quoted as saying, if all cloud is a virtualized data center, then we are setting our goals entirely too low. And the reason for that is many, many years ago, we thought about cloud as a synonym for the internet, as you said. We said this thing, this amorphous thing that we didn't have to think about it as a consumer, provided these services to us. Sometimes they were email, sometimes they were business applications, but it was a very complex and distributed environment that was everywhere. In the last couple of years, it's kind of become a synonym for the virtualized data center. And these virtualized data centers are fantastic, but we actually think we have to get back to that first definition, which means the definition of cloud has to be the distributed IT system that sits on top of the internet, that encompasses every piece of compute and application functionality and storage anywhere, and organizes it in a way so that we have access to that entire system. It will be composed of virtualized data centers, but they won't all come from one vendor or one provider. It will include the network infrastructure and the intelligence and context it has. And if you take a bigger picture look at it and ask what will cloud be used for, even though today we focus on things like hosting applications and running e-commerce sites, in the future already, in things like the wireless world, cellular wireless, there are concepts like Cloud RAN where we're saying, well, maybe we can take some of the function of the base station and the cellular network and push it into this massive distributed compute framework that represents cloud and change the economics or the scale to get away from this one-to-one relationship between a user and a piece of hardware they connect to, and actually have a relationship between a user and this cloud, which is the aggregation of all the capacity. So it's a very exciting place. It represents the change in the IT framework, and to me it's as pronounced as the change from mainframe to personal computer, from centralized compute to distributed compute. It is touching everything from compute to storage to connectivity to services, and it's changing the architecture fundamentally in very good ways. But I think we have to think much bigger than the current dialogue actually describes it as.
And how do you think the vendor community is going to be sort of transformed by this challenge effectively?
Well, I think back to the ICT example,
right.
We have carrier, enterprise, and consumer ecosystems. And if you go and talk to each one of them about cloud, they will have fantastic things to say about cloud in their space. And then they will immediately proceed to try to steer you away from using cloud for certain other spaces. A great example, and we see this very clearly, in the enterprise space, one of the advantages in cloud is a radical rethinking of how we do storage, for instance, or how we do compute. But the concept of how you can actually achieve that is not limited to just what you do in your private data center, but what happens in this public environment where you have much greater scale and efficiency. The problem is many of the vendors who are pushing cloud in the enterprise ecosystem or silo are terrified of this idea that you might move your storage and compute into a public cloud that isn't in their control, because those networks are not necessarily being built with their technology. Their technology has excess functionality that is unnecessary in the public cloud, and therefore the economics are entirely different. You know, if you sold a box that cost $100 and someone came out with a system that did the same thing effectively at $10, you would be very unlikely to go and push that paradigm to your customer. However, if you take a step back and look at it from an ICT perspective, in the end customer's point of view, they don't care who the vendors are. They want to see radical change in the economics of communication, the economics of storage, the economics of compute, and if they look at it from an ICT perspective and not from a vendor by vendor perspective, they actually could get very excited about it. But it's going to really cause, let's call it, a tremendous amount of FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt creation by people who are protecting their core markets as opposed to people who are thinking on behalf of the customers. Again, for Huawei, we're thrilled about this because we're largely legacy free. We don't have something from the legacy to protect. We can actually focus on solving it the right way.